Welcome to the Questions Asked podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by the insightful Sridhar Kethandapatti. Together, we broaden the lens from coaching as a professional practice to leadership as a space where coaching truly comes to life. We explore how leaders, not just coaches, can use powerful questions, deep listening, and coaching presence to build trust, navigate conflict, and nurture healthier relationships in their teams. Sridhar brings a rich blend of experience, clarity, and warmth to this conversation. He offers practical ways for anyone in a leadership role to foster psychological safety and connection. Whether you're a coach, a manager, or somewhere in between, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in.
Of the day, all these particular development needs to be managed by a project manager or a program manager to ensure the client is success. And at the same time, it is delivered right on time, right on budget, and all those things. So I pivoted myself into the project program management, and I have a Master of Science degree in project management from University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And pretty much after completing that, I actually expanded myself into the program management, project management, managing very complex initiative for various clients. I can say financial industry, utility industry, and as well supply chain, retail industry, so on and so forth. Now in the recent engagement, I've been actually doing a lot of agile related type of coaching, even though the program is actually being executed in the form of a hybrid way. But at the same time, agile is also the most kind of key driver. Again, that's considered to be as a recent buzzword. Pretty much every single organization actually using it. So I started entering into it and then started actually getting various certification, various kind of learning and development. And in fact, Agile Company is one of the company where I was actually trained on the Agile coach. In addition to that, I am also in the journey of obtaining my PCC credential. I do have the hours and everything. Now I need to sit for the exam, so on and so forth. Again, all these things actually makes me a kind of combination of as a coach and as well as a mentor and as well pretty much managing very complex initiatives, troubleshooting various clients. That's a kind of a quick background.
Impressive. Right. So when we with your technical background and as you say, you're part of a technical organization. You are very good at managing projects. Then you moved into the coaching space. How do you put yourself in service of creating healthy relationships in teams?
See, the healthy relationship actually has kind of twofold to it. One is basically how do you foster collaboration? How do you foster trust? And how do you foster confidentiality? And how do you actually build the confidence within the team? This is actually the one fold. The second is basically how you actually going to be as an empathetic individual, especially when you are actually treating with the people, dealing with the people, and addressing their concerns and pain points. So you have to be a kind of an empathetic leader in order for you to gain all these trust and confidence. So these two fold actually plays a major role in building a healthy relationship between the team or either between the individual, because that's a kind of a common nomenclature right now, especially when dealing with a bigger organization. There are a lot of politics, there are a lot of boundaries that you need to overcome. And the key thing is, how do you build a relationship? And when you say relationship, it needs to be very healthy. It's healthy on both the parties, not just only on one side. So how do you actually cultivate that particular healthy relationship? And how do you actually bring these kind of trust and confidence for you by the team and as well by the group, etc.
And why do you think it's so important to have healthy relationships in a team? It's, shouldn't the team just be doing the work? I mean, I can hear someone ask that question.
Absolutely. I think you really got the right point here. The question is, healthy relationship is actually the key driver for anything that you want it to be success. Because when you are actually working, you are not a solo individual. You are actually going to work with more than one individual, group, or many people. So when you're actually trying to work with many people, the thing is, there is a kind of a saying, all the fingers are not same. Only when it is actually combined together, things can be done. So then that means when you are actually working with a kind of collaborative way, obviously you are actually going to build a very successful team. But plus at the same time, having a healthy and cordial relationship is actually going to make you to really to execute anything success.
How would you then define healthy relationships?
Relationship, maybe probably let me actually put it in a different way, right? When you are actually working with a team, the healthy relationship is basically you being a kind of a part of that particular team. How do you ensure that, right? That's number one. And number two is basically you are actually going to see how you can support and work together with the team, because these two actually are the key driver to become more healthy, and people are actually automatically going to have a kind of a trust and confidence in you to say that I can depend Shri. Okay, if I actually come to Shri actually has got pretty much everything, he can solve the problem for me. That's a kind of a thing. And when you're trying to do a healthy relationship in this case is basically you are actually making other people to believe that what you're doing is correct, not only for them but also for you, but plus at the same time to the organization that you are representing it. So if you're trying to take into all these things into consideration, healthy relationship is really a primary goal for any kind of engagement that you're, even in your married relationship, even in your personal relationship, because having a kind of cordial relationship will actually help you to support each other in all the situation.
Okay. So it's more of like making sure people have the right image and the right feeling when you present yourself or what you need or the project that you're working on.
Absolutely. Like meaning again, not only presenting yourself, but at the same time proving it that you are the right candidate, you are the right individual. They can trust you, right? They have a confidence in you, they have a trust in you, so that they know that okay, if I'm giving something to Sri, there is a good chance it is going to be success. Yeah, obviously he has to undergo some kind of hurdles, but at the same time he knows how to overcome. Plus, at the same time, he is actually going to deliver what it is required. So that's a kind of a confidence and trust, and that's a kind of a key factor and as well key attribute if you need to be if you need to build any kind of team relationship with a healthy atmosphere.
And so in your role as agile coach in such an organization that wants business agility, um, what are the things that you do to make sure that people understand that it's an active part that they need to play in fostering the healthy relationship? It's not just, hey, we high five each other every morning and that's it.
Correct. So the question is, in order for you to continue that particular longevity of that healthy relationship, it is not just only a task maker. Plus, at the same time, when you are actually, it's not that anybody should be expecting that individual is actually doing the task. Okay, that's it, done and dusted. That's not the way, right? Because it's not, because we are not robots. We are not a machine where we are saying, do this work, and then after that, shut it down. That's not the way it's supposed to be, because we are actually having something called personal touch on above of what you are going to do. So that personal touch is actually very much key for you to ensure the day activity, the month activity, the week activity, whatever has been put onto your pipeline, you need to get it done technically. Because you should not just only be a kind of a task creator or a task executor, but at the same time, above and beyond, how do you actually work with that particular relationship? How do you actually work with that particular individual to be success, not only for you, but also for that particular individual? Because it's very important.
So when you're saying it is not only for me, but it's also the people outside of my team or my organization, how would you, well, let me put it like this. Like, what are the biggest challenges that people, individuals, and then teams as a system face in working within a healthy environment for themselves in their relationship?
The environment actually also includes, there are no any kind of political barriers. There are no any kind of bureaucracy, right? Because those two are very key driver. Because if those two are not having being followed technically, then obviously that organization is completely going to fail no matter what it is. So then that means, how do you actually avoid that bureaucracy? How do you avoid that particular political nature? That is where you are actually coming as not only as an individual, as a team, and as a group. You are actually collectively thinking about, okay, how we can overcome that particular problem.
Mm-hmm.
Here in this case, in order for you to solve the organizational cultural behavior, you cannot work as an individual. Definitely not possible. When you are actually working with a kind of a group, then you are actually making every attempt. So where the organization feels, okay, there is something coming here, you know what we need to address. So then that means when you are having a very healthy relationship with the team and individual and the group, technically you are actually going to make that happen to change the organization culture. Maybe the organization culture cannot actually change overnight. It takes a long time. But at the same time, when you are actually coming in as a group, they appreciate it. Sometimes first time when you try to come, it's going to fail. Second time it's going to fail. Third time it's going to fail. But for the fourth time, they know that again and again we are completely coming and then persisting these things, right? So obviously the organization is actually going to say there is something wrong in us. Okay, why don't we change? And then see whether what is it exactly we are looking for and what is it exactly they are looking for. And then slowly the adaptation can actually happen in order for them to change and work towards it. So that's the main goal, or it should be.
Yeah, yeah, and it's tough, right? Because an organization, as you say, it has political background, it has structure, it has hierarchy, it has roles, it even has the ghosts of the past and the dreams of the future. All these things that we can think about, like what's going on in the organization, and how to create a culture in which people feel safe and trusted and well, safe enough to produce.
Right, exactly. And again, here there is one key factor which will actually also drive, which is the psychological safety. Right, the psychological safety plays a major role in a healthy relationship, because people should actually feel they are pretty much safe to work with me or work with the team in an ideal world. If they feel that they are not safe to work with you, technically then you are actually breaking the relationship there itself, even though they might not expose it off, because they have to actually do that particular activity in order to have their daily bread technically. So that's why they will keep their mouth shut, and then they will get the work done, and then they will become eventually they will actually become like a kind of a task maker and a task executor. They will not care about whether anything is going to happen for me or not, because as long as I'm able to complete the task, they'll keep move on. So there you are actually breaking the relationship, but plus at the same time you are also not cultivating a good habit there.
A good working habit, is that what you're saying?
That's correct, exactly.
And so when you see trust and collaboration and communication slide down in a team, are you saying that there's a correlation to productivity as well?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Because the collaboration actually gives you more broader edge for productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because the collaboration is nothing but, if I do my task and I'm actually completing my task, but at the same time I'm also helping and supporting the other team members to accomplish their task. When you are actually going to do that in that collaborative way, what you are doing is basically you are helping and supporting, plus at the same time you are also doing your work, plus at the same time you are actually making the project to be success, and the objective is actually met technically. So the collaboration is very, very key there.
And there is a correspondence between productivity and positivity in a team, that together they create more high performing teams. But if you have too much fun, then it doesn't mean that the team becomes productive. If you have too much productivity, that will slide down to
Exactly,
pure.
it needs to be balanced at all the time. Plus at the same time, the again another factor to build a very strong healthy relationship is, how do you encourage the team? How do you motivate the team? Right, because every time you are actually going to see the team member or the team is actually doing any kind of successful activity, immediately encourage them, immediately motivate them, because there is a kind of a research that states very clearly, anybody who's actually been encouraged all the time, pretty much they actually always be success. Not only that, they will actually get the work done without any kind of problem. So that means basically you are actually fostering a good habit, and as well you are also educating that particular individual to say that you are making every single progress, and you are actually making it success. So whenever I'm encouraging him, they are able to go above and beyond what they can do. So this is exactly the kind of leader that needs to do technically.
Mhm. So it's the encouragement that we need from leadership. And how do you coach leadership and being more encouraging towards the team and maybe a little bit less micromanaging, which is so terrible for psychological safety?
In that instance, you need to become a servant leader technically. When you are actually becoming a servant leader, you are pretty much, you are not only trying to actually work with the team, but also you are also feeling the pain of that particular team, and then you are
Mhm.
working with the team technically, right? When you are actually working as a servant leader, you are also demonstrating the empathetic way of doing things. So that is exactly the kind of a key here. Again, empathy is not really a kind of a new character or new attribute that needs to come in right from childhood technically, unless until whoever is actually educating you from the parent side, they are actually going to give you, meaning they are going to teach you how you need to be empathetic and how you really need to grow up in that particular direction. So once you start building that particular habit and culture, everything within you, when you are actually working with the team, it becomes so easy for you to say that, okay, I can understand what Natascha is telling, I can
Mm.
understand what where Natascha is coming in, say for example, and then address that particular pain points, and as well work very closely with that particular individual to see how they can overcome, by overcoming in sense or supporting them to come out of their pain. That means you are also understanding the pain, but also at the same time you're also feeling the pain for themselves technically.
Okay, so it sounds like you're working with a deep sense of empathy as a team lead and as a team coach yourself as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And moreover, in order for you to showcase being an empathetic leader, it actually demonstrate that you cannot actually be like a kind of a leader who is considered to be as a boss, who can actually dictate, right? Because dictate is basically not going to get you anything what you want to achieve. Because when you're joining together and you don't have a kind of dictating habit, you are able to actually make the team to be more success, and at the same time you're also making the entire team to trust on you as a kind of potential leader, right? Because leader who needs a guide, leader who's not supposed to take everybody under his follow steps, but rather he needs to work with the team so that the team is able to make every step ahead of him, and then he's actually enjoying that particular kind of a moment technically.
Hmm. So it's also more fun in a way, right? Yeah, yeah, I understand you. And so for you, Sridhar, what would you say are some key coaching techniques that you specifically use in your teams and maybe with leadership to improve these relationships and interpersonal trust?
So the coaching technique what I have actually used is basically trying to listen technically. Listen, active listening is actually one of the kind of a coaching technique which I normally use it. First of all, I will listen to them. Then I will actually ask a lot of powerful questions so that they can answer the questions by themselves. And then I will actually guide them to really to dig deeper into those particular areas for them to really to realize. So how can I make that particular coachee to be more realized? And what kind of realization that I can actually bring it to the table? And then I can actually probe more kind of thoughtful questions to them so that they know exactly, they can understand themselves. So this way the leader can actually think of the same way to think in their current situation and then trying to act accordingly.
And what would be one of your favorite powerful questions that you like to use when you're working with a leader that needs to start trusting their team, for example?
The powerful question is depending upon the situation, depending upon the scenario. For example, I will actually ask them the question, what have they learned about themselves?
Hmm.
What is that they think they need to work upon? And how do they think technically to overcome some of these particular challenging issues, etc. So these are the kind of powerful questions that I'll normally ask. But at the same time, I will also ask them, you were like this at this point of time. Now, moving forward, what do you want to be as? What do you think you need to really to fix this particular problem? If you are actually going to put yourself into that particular situation, what do you think you need to do to really to overcome? So something like that.
So it's a very powerful technique to bring someone to a desired future, and let them walk around like, what would you how would you like to be seen by the team? What would you like them to say about you, and how do we get there? That's
I will actually use the emotional intelligence technically, right? So really, the emotional intelligence in this case is basically for them to put into a fantasy world, for example, or to a very much area that they would like to be in as, for example. And they know exactly by being in that particular position, being in that particular place will actually make them to be more happy and enticing, for example. So then I will say that, okay, assuming you are actually in that particular place, now what will you do next? Now, do you think that if I'm actually going to give you a magic wand kind of a stuff for you, now you tell me what is it you want the magic wand to do? Because magic wand can do anything what you want. Only thing is you need to ask the right question and then the right thing. It's up to you, right? So that means I'll ask them, if I'm going to give you this, what do you think you can do? What do you think you want right now? What do you think you want tomorrow, for example? So now think in that direction and then provoke more kind of thought provoking questions to them. And then that will actually help them to think, okay, let me do this, right? So that's how it is.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And when you said something interesting, I bring them to a place where they like to be. Could that be a place outside of work? Like I like to be at the beach. This is where I feel
It
comfortable.
depends upon exactly what they like most technically. Sometimes some people will say, I want to be in the beach. Sometimes they will say, I want to be in the Alice in the Wonderland, something like that area. And sometimes the people will say, I want to be in the office. Okay, fine. That's up to
Right.
you. But what do you like most like that?
And so that brings them into a state of calm and trust and comfort, so that the rest of the activity is allowed. It can be more a bit more fun, a bit more wild. For a lot of people, these type of questions, they are seen like wild. Why are we talking about this impossible future? It's not true, and it's not, it's not reality. Let's stay in reality. But it's so powerful to just
Sometimes for you to be more success, you need to come out of the reality, unfortunately.
yeah.
Because reality is what you are seeing, something which you are actually not going to see. But at the same time, if you are going to imagine yourself that you need to be in that particular land, in that particular moment, in that particular way, etc., automatically it will actually help you to think in a different way, because you need to think out of the box technically in this situation. Because if you are actually going to put yourself into the current situation in the current state, you will not be able to resolve the problem that you are talking about. You need to come out of it. So for you to come out of it, what do you think is the right way for you? And you need to pick and choose accordingly, because as a coach or as a mentor, I cannot actually tell you, okay, be in this place. But whereas you need to like that particular place and you need to have a passion to that particular place, that will actually help you to say that, okay, you know what, I'm enjoying it now.
You're ready for change in a way as well. It feels good. It's yeah, I understand where you're going with that. It's a really lovely idea. And so how do you facilitate difficult discussions when maybe there's tension in the team or between team and leader? How do you you can't all bring them to the beach.
Difficult situation do arise when you are actually working with the team. It's unfortunate, right? So I won't say it is unfortunate. That also cultivates fostering a healthy relationship in a positive way, technically.
Hmm.
Because what you are going to do is the difficult situation. So first of all, as a leader, I'll try to find out, what do you mean by difficult situation? What is really causing the difficult situation for you? So in order to overcome, what do you think you need, that you need to come out of that difficult situation? Don't solve the problem, but you how do you think you can come out of the difficult situation for now? You have certain items in front of you. You know that by having all these things can actually right now focus for me to resolve the difficult situation. So now you list out all those things and start working towards that. And then see whether in order for you to do all those things, what kind of help and support is really required. Then the difficult situation can actually be in variety of form. It could be a conflict within the team members. It could be some kind of other challenges because of the organization that has actually put you in forth technically. So then that means you have to analyze what is it exactly. And as a leader, when I'm actually trying to work with that particular team, first of all, I'll ask them, list out all the kind of difficult issues that you're talking about, prioritize those particular issues. What do you think you need to achieve now? And in order for you to achieve now, what do you think you need help from me as a leader? Then in that case, you actually use that particular leader as a guide for you to say that I want this, I want this, I want this. Okay, let me help you. And then once I am able to get a lot of things for you, then obviously you are actually going to get the things moving. And that difficult situation can actually be completely be softened. And at the same time, it will actually help that particular individual team or individual group of that particular organization to rethink on some of these things.
I love that. And something that you said in the beginning really resonated with me when you said like, hey, conflict happens, and it kind of sounded like it's a good opportunity for growth anyway.
Yeah. Yep, of course. Because all the conflicts need to be converted into an opportunity for growth, technically. Irrespective of the situation, irrespective of the nature of the issue. Because only thing is, how do you perceive yourself? Basically, it's a perception. Some people say, for example, there is also a saying, they say, when you are actually sitting under the palm tree, right, you might be drinking milk, but whereas you are actually really taking the palm's nectar. Palm's nectar is also in the white color, milk is also in the white color. People will think you are not drinking milk, you are actually drinking the palm's nectar. But technically, that's not the case. I am actually drinking milk. So that means, how do you change that perception? What do you think you need to do? Right? That perspective needs to be changed, and that will actually give the leader a confidence, but at the same time, team also to have more confidence and trust on that leader.
Right. So what you're saying is it's important that the different perspectives get out, and that we get to the bottom of how do we see the problem, and how do we interpret what we're seeing, because sometimes we can all have different interpretations, and so you take that time. Do you facilitate larger sessions then with your team, or is it more one-on-one conversations?
Most of the time, it's a kind of small group of people, not a larger, because larger, it's kind of a little bit difficult to deal with a larger group, especially when you are dealing with a healthy relationship. Because the reason is, for a kind of a group like this, I will say minimum 3 to 5 people is more
Okay.
than sufficient. It's easy to manage, and it's easy to manage their expectation. But if you're actually going to go anything beyond 5, it is going to be a little bit challenging, because one thing is you need to control them, number one, and number two is the questions are going to come from all the direction, and they are going to present with a lot of things, and that becomes a little bit complex situation in really dealing with that. But at the same, it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. Certainly you can do it, but it might not actually give a positive output technically.
So have a group that is large enough for people to be able to talk to each other, but also small enough for you to hold that system for them in a way.
Because the main key here is, how do you make everybody accountable? How do you make everybody really work collaboratively? Because more the people, then that means you are actually dealing with more complex situations.
Yeah, we all bring our own systems and our own perspectives to the group, so it will take longer time. Interesting. And so you already talked a little bit about psychological safety. If psychological safety and it like is key to high performing teams, a little bit what Google also discovered with their programs. How do you help teams cultivate on a daily basis psychological safety?
You as a leader, you need to interact with the team, number one. The team members needs to feel, okay, I can trust Sridhar. If I talk to him, I think I'm pretty sure I'm safe with him. So then that means you need to really interact with the team on a daily basis. Try to understand, okay, what are the issues that they're talking about? What are the good things that they're talking about? What is the accomplishment that they really wanted to go for it? All those things. Plus, sometimes not only to the work, but also you also need to talk to them about their personal stuff. Sometimes. Because the personal stuff, when you're actually going to talk to them, they automatically become near and dear to you automatically. Because that's a kind of a key driver for you to really to showcase that I can trust you and they can trust you back technically, right? So then once you start actually talking about their interest, once you talk about what they really wanted to do in the next 5 years, say for example. Then when you start interacting with them, they know that okay, Sridhar actually loves to talk these particular subject because I am also interested in this. And then when they start exchanging back and forth, eventually the relationship is actually going to build very healthy, and then they will automatically have a kind of extreme trust on you and confidence on you. Because when you are actually trying to deal with that kind of a team, the entire fundamental is how much the team is actually having trust in you. What do you think you need to gain that particular trust? Because once the trust is broken, the problem is very difficult for you to bring it back, and it's very, very tough, right? And that's why the reason when you are actually trying to work with these kind of healthy relationship situation, better you ensure you are following what you need to, and you are actually up to the expectation of that. Even though you might be wrong, that's okay, but still, if the team feels that way, showcase that, and then make them to understand, okay, why it is wrong. And then once you start doing it, that becomes a kind of a confidence, and that becomes a kind of a trust, and they will say, you know what, I know what you're talking about. That's what it is.
I totally understand what you mean, and it's a recurring idea that just comes back in these conversations. That you can trust the team, be more personal, connected to them, so they know who you are. So you also know that you're human. You have flaws. You have things to learn. You're not perfect. So sometimes we, as leaders, people may think that we need to be perfect in everything. We can't make a mistake, but actually that works counterintuitive. It doesn't help, because now my team feels that they also have to be perfect. Otherwise, they won't fit in the same narrative. So you also have to show a little bit of yourself, like, hey, I'm human. There's something, I'm okay here, and you're okay. It's fine. We can make mistakes. But if I bring this back to your, there's a specialty that you have. You work a lot with safe teams and organizations that have implemented safe agile frameworks. So the framework that's, it works with dependencies. It's quite a complex system usually. Multiple dependencies. How do you help teams maintain strong relationships across these agile release trains?
So the question is, it's a very difficult situation technically, because when you are actually dealing with multiple release train situation, you are actually going to deal with a lot of people's team dynamics and organization dependencies, and sometimes the way the enterprise architecture, the enterprise structure of the agile also operates upon. So in this case, you might need to actually customize few things in order for you to really to fit. And especially when you are actually working with multiple pods, especially dealing with these kind of multiple releases, etc., it's very important that you are actually interacting with all the pods appropriately, having a kind of a common communication, then expecting them to really to follow the same way. And in this case, the agile principles also needs to be followed very strictly, so that people actually encourage those things. And at the same time, when you are actually working with these particular pods, making sure that the dependencies are actually sorted out, and the overlapping situation that is expected to come, how you are going to tackle it, and how you are going to overcome those particular situations, all those things needs to be addressed. So even if you try to do that in the beginning situation itself, it becomes more easy for you to work collaboratively with the entire team or various pods that you're talking about. And especially when you're dealing with the multiple release trains, the question is, there is always a collision that actually happens. How do you overcome that particular collision? Like, what do you need to do? Say for example, as an RTE, release train engineer, you are actually going to identify what is most important for you and as well for your team. That's number one. That's a priority. The second is basically, by concentrating on that, how you are going to actually collaborate with the other team to ensure they understand the mission and the vision of what you are dealing with. Then when you are actually trying to work on it collaboratively, provide a kind of overall expectation, and as well overall kind of working agreement between the team, and that actually creates a healthy relationship. It's a very complex situation, because sometimes when I used to actually have 5 different pods with close to 10 different release trains that needs to actually be managed, and each of those particular releases are actually dependent upon various infrastructure, various organizational boundaries, etc., have to overcome all those things. And that itself will actually make the entire project to really to extend themselves for a longer period of time. Especially say, for example, I'm actually working on an infrastructure decommissioning activity. That
Okay.
infrastructure decommissioning activity is not so simple, because I cannot just say I'm unplugging everything. Okay, the servers are gone, trashed. No, you cannot do that, because I have to actually study that particular server. I need to study that particular, what are the applications that are currently running, and then migrate those particular applications to a temporary area so that I can actually disconnect the current server appropriately. And when I'm trying to do it, I also need to ensure the security, the compliance, and everything is actually being taken care of appropriately. So then that means it's a very complex situation. But in this case, I will be actually be dealing with 10 different pods, because one might be infrastructure, one might be enterprise, one might be some solution architecture, and one might be from the business side of it, etc. So on and so forth. If that is the case, dealing with all of them, and each of those particular areas will be having at least close to 20 to 30 different people working, then in that case, you can imagine how complex it is going to be. So then in that case, I need to actually maintain a very cordial relationship with them, trying to understand where they are coming from, and at the same time emphasizing my kind of priority and my kind of expectation, so that they are very clear and they can come up with a kind of a strategy to help me to support, to drive it. That's exactly what I normally do when I'm dealing with multiple releases, etc., as a release train engineer.
And so you're balancing that leadership role with that personal, here I am, this is the way I talk to you, and you can talk to me, creating that relationship on multiple dimensions in the organization. And organizations that work with SAFe usually don't have a role of coach. These trained engineer usually takes that role. There are scrum masters in each of the parts. Um, have you ever had a situation in which you had to take matters in own hand and start coaching a group of people, or take things over for them even?
For all of these things, the one which I was just now highlighting it, I have to actually take it on everything into my control on my own hands, and I need to actually work with a team of people, etc., coaching them the safe agile principles, etc., and especially how to really to understand how safe operates. Right.
Mm.
The question is, the safe is very unique structure, and it's a unique way of representing the agile way of working technically. But when you're trying to customize it, it becomes more complex. If you don't customize it, and then if you were really taking it out of the box as is, and out of the box exactly you are executing it, you will be able to be more success in that way. But at the same time, when you're customizing it, that becomes a kind of complex, and that's exactly what everybody is doing, no matter what it is. Because the reason is, it's a it's a very complex structure that has already been laid out. You really don't have to customize it, ideally. But when you start customizing it, you are breaking the enterprise structure of the safe, and at the same time, you're also introducing more complexity, how you can achieve the success for that. And that's why majority of the organizations are failing, especially implementing safe. That's because of that particular reason. That's again my perception. But at the same time, how can you overcome it? That's why the reason, what you might need to do is, you might need to take it in a single pod level type of activity, or a single business unit, right? Try to work pilot it out and see whether
Mhm.
how it actually operates and how it reacts. If it's success, use the same concept to, as part of the continuous improvement, to implement to the other areas, and then see whether how that behaves, because every particular business area is actually very unique in nature, and they behave very unique. Then in that case, whatever might be working for me might not be working for you at all the times. Then in that case, I have to do a customization. Yes, that so be it. But don't make a kind of heavy customization. Change the entire structure and the pillar of the safe. If you do that, obviously, technically, you are actually shaking everything to the entire foundation. And that's where the entire organization is feeling the pain of implementing safe in a complex way. That's because of that, not because of they cannot be success. They can be success, but only thing is, because of the compliance nature, because of security nature, because of various other dependencies in the business domain, etc., when they are actually adapting the safe into their organization, it's not working very well as they think of. Because
Mm.
sometimes the people will think agile is speed. No, that is completely incorrect. Agile is not speed. Yeah, terminology means that the antonym, the synonym for the agile is basically for, that means it's speed, but it doesn't mean that I can execute everything speed. No, it says take a good step, one by one, slowly work towards your goal accordingly. And when you try to do it, implementing the same thing again is going to become more fast. That's what the agility you are talking about here, right? So that's what it is supposed to be, and that's how that will actually derive more output for you. And moreover, when you are implementing the agile, you are also implementing something called the concept, nothing of redundancy, reducing the redundancy, which is nothing but the lean. Like, so you're implementing the lean principles and you are actually taking care of all of them, and that way at least it becomes more matured agile delivery.
And so, how could we connect that to creating healthy relationships? So what you're saying is, when you are adapting the safe structure, the safe framework to your own situation, there is a huge risk of overcomplexifying things and processes and business and enterprise structure. Um, how does that connect back to human relationships?
The relationship in this case is, it's not going to be different as compared to any other, again, because when you're dealing with the very unique people, set of people understanding the safe or people understanding the agile is more key for you to be more success, and that actually helps you to be building a very strong healthy relationship with that particular individual or group. So technically what you need to do is stay away from the concept of agile, stay away from all of these things. Rather, you actually tell them why we are actually working the new way, as we are trying to say prescribe this way is a better way. So
Hmm.
when you're trying to work with them to understand, make them to understand, then they'll say, okay, in order for you to perform this, follow these principles, policies, procedures. And I'm there to help you, I'm there to guide you, I'm there to help you to adapt that into your normal day in and day out activity. And then I will tell them, okay, take a small step, find out, okay, what it is. And if you like it, go for it. If you don't like it, let me know what is it that you don't like. Then in that case, what do I need to do to change it for you? You tell me. So when you're trying to talk like this and then approach like this, the relationship automatically going to get built, because you are actually bringing a kind of a trust and confidence for that particular individual to work with you, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're doing, because you're not forcing anybody. You're not actually telling that get the work done, this is the way you need to do. Then obviously you're breaking the relationship there. Rather, you're actually going to tell them this is what it is being prescribed. Tell me whether you can follow, yes or no. If you can follow, it's good. But if you cannot follow, what is that particular step that you cannot follow? You tell me. Then I'll have to actually help them to understand, okay, this is how you need to do. And then they will say, okay, fine, no problem, let me adapt it. It takes a couple of iterations, or maybe more than a couple of iterations, obviously, but
Yeah.
at least it builds a kind of a bridge for you to really to have a very strong relationship with that particular group or individual.
Yeah. So instead of telling people, okay, we're going to work the agile way or the safe agile way, we're going to have this type of structure. What you're doing is you're explaining them what the outcome is of what you're trying to obtain with this new way of working, taking words out, take the vocabulary away. We just want to work more iteratively, for example. This is what you're saying, so that people can understand it, apply it, test it, and maybe adapt it to their own situation.
That is correct. Again, in all these situations, change is inevitable, no matter what it is.
Mm.
And how do you prepare yourself for that inevitable situation? What do you think you need to do? And what do you think you need to prepare for yourself? Because you cannot say, I'm going to be always like this. No, you cannot be like this. You have to change,
Yeah.
because the change is constant technically, right? So that's exactly what you need to understand. And introducing that particular mentality into their mind will make me more success to drive for them to change quickly.
I understand what you're meaning. I mean, evolution. That's how nature is still nature, right? Until until humans came into the picture and wanted to organize everything. Um, I have a couple more questions about leadership and culture. So how could in the teams, but also, as you're saying, in the larger organization, how can leadership contribute more into fostering these healthy relationships throughout?
First of all, before even leadership fostering this particular culture or anything, we need to educate the leader first.
Hmm.
Because without educating the leader cannot foster the same kind of concept back into the team. because what you give is what you get, right? Technically. So then in that case, how do you promote that particular adaptability with the leader? So first of all, you need to interact with that particular leader, make them to understand. And then how can you make them to understand? Because most of the leaders, they don't have even have time technically. They will say, I don't even have 1 second. Then in that case, how do you actually make them to be more successful? So maybe probably understand their personal relationship, understand their personal expectation, understand what are the interests that they currently have, and then you actually tap those particular minute important stuff, and then start talking and interacting with them more often in that direction. That will actually make them to attract back to you. Then you can actually talk about, okay, let's talk about the agile, let's talk about the new way of working, forget about agile, new way of working. What do you think we need to do as an organization leader? What do you think you need to do better to really to climb up to the next level? Then you start interacting. So that means once you start actually interacting with the leader in that direction, and once you start adapting, making the leader to adapt to your style, for example, automatically they will actually foster these kind of things back to the team to say that, okay, follow this. Because of this, here is the outcome. Because leaders are always expecting two things. One is, what is my outcome? By doing this, what is my outcome? Okay, I'm investing $1 billion for you, but what is my outcome? Are you going to make me as a $2 billion immediately? Sometimes people will talk about in monetary. Sometimes they will say, my company is like this. Now I want to climb up to the next level. What's my outcome by doing this? Do you think anything can be actually be fast enough for me to really to achieve some of these things? Because that's exactly their mind, because that's what they are really trained for. Then in that case, these are the outcomes that you need to really capture, and then you need to actually first of all understand the leader's expectation, and then start working towards that, and then making sure how you need to prove it to them. It is a long journey, it's a tough journey, but at the same time you need to prove it to them. And then if they think you are the right individual, they will say, you know what, take that guy, drive him
Mm.
to success, and I'm going to be there for support you. This is how you it's a kind of a transformational leadership activity, and it's very tough, very tough. And that too in the current climate, it's very difficult to manage these kind of transformation, because it's not so easy, because people are not ready to accept anymore anything, and they are
Mhm.
asking tons of questions than not it used to be in the past. And they ask tons of questions, so then that means you, before even they are asking the question, you better be prepared with those particular questions and answers, and then go back to them. When you try to do that, it automatically helps them to build a confidence in you, trust in you, and they will say, I'm giving you small pilot project for you, prove it to me success, I'll give you more. So this is exactly what you need to do from the leadership perspective, to convince them, to really to make them to understand.
And I love how we're coming back full circle to the beginning of the conversation, where you, as when you said, like, if you want to create and have a healthy relationship at work, you have to prove your worth, that you're trustworthy for this person, and that you deliver on your promises, and that you're productive, and that they can trust you to deliver what you need to deliver. At the same time, being a human being with our flaws. Maybe a last question. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to teams that want to have better and healthier relationship, what would it be? What would you like them to start doing?
Build confidence and trust. That will automatically fall in place for you to be more success. And whatever you do, wherever you do, wherever it is going to be, technically make them to understand and make them to trust you, because they need to say that I am trusting Sridhar for everything, no matter what it is. And there is a kind of a trust to say that if Sridhar does something, there is always a success, and it's not going to break. And that kind of confidence needs to be built. And that's what which I will try to say to anybody, to say that, okay, if you want to build a confidence with the team and the trust, and have a kind of a very strong and healthy relationship, make sure you are actually trustable, and it's basically, you are basically trustworthy. Technically, that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And we need so much more of that today, right? The trust is a rare gem right now, and if you're able to get the trust of the people and respect that, then you're a winner everywhere. Thank you so much, Sridhar. I learned a lot, it's always wonderful to talk about someone who's so passionate about their favorite framework. Um, maybe last question, what's next for you? You're not working in a safe organization right now. So what's next for you? Where are you going to be focusing on right now?
I am trying to actually adapt a kind of a safe techniques and everything wherever it is possible. And the new organization also follows a blend of safe, but not 100% safe, but blend of safe. So I will actually try to encourage those things to expand into safe, actually, if possible, and then see whether what can be done.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, Sridhar. How would you like people to reach out to you?
They can actually reach out to me either through my LinkedIn or either through my email, which I believe you already have it. And then maybe probably they can actually share some of these particular details. And then I'm happy to actually provide the necessary responses accordingly.
Nice. I'll make sure that people have your LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because there is a peer coaching group starting right now at this moment. We're a little bit over time. So if you want to join for some coach practice, you know where to find that peer coaching group. And I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Sridhar.
Thanks a lot, Natascha, for organizing this. It's wonderful. And definitely it was my pleasure really exchanging some of my experiences and everything and really